What's up, Vault Hunters? It's Echo here, Queen of the Loot Goblins, bringing you another Borderlands 3 video. On today's video, we'll be talking about my PHASEZERKER build, Angel of Death. I'm bringing back the OG skill tree with Do Harm included. As most of you know, there was a patch on July 23rd, 2020, allowing us once again to use Do Harm with ties that bind. I've made slight changes to this build as there are changes to the game. If you aren't aware how rush stacks work or ties that bind, I urge you to view my rush stacks explained video before continuing here. I will link it now at the top of the video. Bringing Do Harm back into the picture once again solidifies Angel of Death reigning supreme. And before I get a ton of hate messages, yes, I am aware of the broken action skill revelation. But when I say the best PHASEZERKER build, I'm talking about raw damage, skill based alone, without any exploit, glitches, or action skills that aren't working properly. This is pure and can endure nerfs. With all that said, let's get right into the skill trees and see what's new. Feel free to pause the video now to copy down the skill trees. Let's start with the Fist of Elements tree. The first thing you might notice is we have taken a point out of Infusion. If you remember from our last video, Infusion and Forceful Expression created extra pellets that did 100% damage. However, with this recent patch, they have limited the number of pellets to 4 and also where the sources came from, thus killing guns such as the Recursion, King and Queen's Calls, and the Carrier. You may have noticed they aren't putting out the same damage numbers nor pellets. Now, there is no need to put a point into Infusion unless you want converted damage. Everything else in this tree has stayed the same other than we put 1 point into Catharsis instead of Infusion. Just because, why not? It's extra damage and we need to get down to the capstone Forceful Expression. That gives us bonus damage based on our elemental action skill. I also want to touch quickly on Conflux as we are currently taking advantage of this skill. If you already use Angel of Death, you already know how this works, but first timers, brace yourself. So the card reads, whenever Amara applies a status effect to an enemy, she gains the chance to randomly electrocute, ignite, or melt that enemy. This paired with Violent Tapestry allows you to have shock, instant, and corrosive status effects all the time. Let's talk about Violent Tapestry quickly. So Violent Tapestry, for every rush stack consumed, Amara's status effect chance is increased. And since we can consume 99 stacks, we are constantly applying a status effect. So Violent Tapestry and Conflux go hand in hand. Now with Conflux taking care of the shock, fire, and corrosive dot, pair that with a cryo and rad bonus anointed shield and nade, and this is allowing you to now apply 5 status effects without any effort in mixing and matching, such as like a next to max gun or an infused weapon, stuff like that. You're all the time doing 5 status effects. Now, if you're saying, okay, so what? You're doing 5 elements. There's a lot of reason that you want to do 5 elements. Number 1 is the more status effects you're gonna get, the more damage you're gonna get, the more damage over time you're gonna get per status effect on that enemy. And as far as the rest of the 4 elements, we aren't just doing piddly damage. We are actually doing massive amounts of damage, and this is all from the help of Anima, Tempest, Forceful Expression, Laid Bare, and Personal Space. These 5 elements are putting up some serious numbers in the hundreds of thousands each. And if that's not enough, I'd like to turn your attention to the Guardian perk, Harmageddon. This gives us 5% more damage per unique status effect, and this is damage from any source. Since we are taking full advantage of all of the elements, we are getting 25% more overall damage. And this is what sets this build apart from all the others. We are taking full advantage that Amara is an elementalist. As you can see in this example, we are doing 5 different elements, all in high values. These add up to millions, if not billions of damage, all thanks to our powerhouse elemental perks we've just discussed. And this is why having Conflux in our build is well worth it. On to the Mystical Assault tree. Do Harm is staying the same with 5 points into it. As most of you know from my Rush Stacks Explained video or previous Angel of Death builds, this drastically increases our action skill damage. Moving on to Violent Tapestry, you will notice that we aren't maxing it out, and this is because I really enjoy the reload speed of Alacrity. After some efficiency testing, I noticed that Violent Tapestry is just fine with 3 points into it. That's why I took 2 points out of it and put them into Alacrity for the faster reload. Next is Transcend. Transcend gives us an increase of 27% critical hit damage. And since we are spamming our action skill quite frequently, we can proc this twice, increasing our critical hit damage to 54%. Next, we are going to max out From Rest. Points into From Rest will increase your charge speed by 44%, allowing your Maliwan weapon to shoot almost instantly. However, some of you out there are not bothered by this and don't use Maliwan weapons. Now, if that's the case, let me present this option. Take the 3 points out of From Rest and put them into Clarity. This will give you more survivability and unlock your corrosive action skill, Blight Tiger. This has proved helpful when fighting Wotan, Agonizer, and doing the DLC 1 Handsome Jackpot. This is a great alternative, and it's fun to switch things up. We have also put 3 points into Awakening. Maxing that out gives us 30% increase in rush stack effectiveness, primarily working with Do Harm and Violent Tapestry. Not taking advantage of this skill is just silly. For example, without it, Do Harm sits at 4.5% action skill damage increase, while having Awakening puts you at 5.9% per stack. This is just too much damage to pass up on, in my opinion. Next up is Remnant. I always like to talk about Remnant as it is such a fun skill to utilize. 1 point is all you need to create a homing projectile, and overkill damage is added in automatically. Let me show you an example now. And finally, our Capstone Avatar. This allows us to have plus 10 more rush stacks, but the main focus of Avatar is that we can use 2 action skills per cooldown, allowing us to spam that action skill. For our action skills, I use Ties That Bind and Stillness of Mind. Stillness of Mind will pick up all surrounding enemies of our grasped target. And as for our action skill element, that depends on the content that you're engaged in at the moment. On to the gear. Now, this build is not gun or anointment dependent, but I'm going to show you my best in slot. So first, I'd have to say the flipper. I carry around a rad or cryo flipper with a bonus splash anointment. The reason that you're going to want bonus splash anointment on any weapon that you can get your hands on is because the splash damage anointment is universal and works with our action skills. So that's just going to give us more damage. Next in slot would be the root. The root is got a little bit of a nerf on this last patch because of the pellets, but it's still really great for bossing and mobbing. Again, you're going to want it with the splash anointment. Next up is the Monarch. The Monarch doesn't come with the splash anointment, so we are going to go ahead and choose consecutive hits anointment. Now, like I said before, this build is not anointment nor gun dependent, so if you find one with 100 ASC, that's going to work just as well. And lastly, the Light Show. If you guys haven't tried the Light Show, it's a super fun pistol and it puts out a lot of damage. This, again, I'm going to get with consecutive hits. This is just going to give us a lot of damage. Next up, we have our shield. Now, I personally think that the Old God is going to be your best bet. I know some of you guys don't have DLC 2, so if you don't, I use a transformer on a lot of things, like the Maliwan takedown and stuff like that. You can get yourself a transformer. Stopgap works well, recharger. Honestly, any shield you use is going to be okay with this build. The one thing that you are going to absolutely want is bonus cryo damage, because that's going to go hand in hand with our conflux and to get us the 5 elements no matter what. As far as our nade, I use the Piss Nade with bonus radiation. That is our 5th element. We are now going to be able to do 5 elements. If you don't like the Piss Nade, you can use literally any nade you'd like, but you really want to focus on that bonus radiation damage for your anointment. Next up, we are going to use the Pearl. And this is just going to be giving us the most damage that we can possibly have. I like to have one with fire rate and mag size. That's just going to be the best for me. And finally, our Calm. This is what our build is based around, the PHASEZERKER. Now, one thing that I would like to point out to you guys is we did not put any points into Restless. Maxing out Restless gets us 25% action skill cooldown rate. Now that's not very rewarding for 5 points because the PHASEZERKER comm gives us 1% action skill cooldown rate per rush stack, and we're taking advantage of 25 rush stacks, giving us that 25% right there. Now if you get a PHASEZERKER with action skill cooldown rate as a passive, that's giving you another 36% action skill cooldown rate. So I would urge you to find a PHASEZERKER with action skill cooldown rate with this build. Then that paired with Avatar, our capstone, gives us 2 action skills per cooldown. Then also with the Guardian rank topped off, gives us more cooldown. So our cooldown's sitting at a roughly 5-second, but with Avatar, with being able to grasp twice, I hardly notice that I don't have an action skill. So putting points into Restless is kind of a waste of skill points in my opinion. So I had some comments asking about bossing with Angel of Death, and I wanted to quickly explain some of the interactions that are happening. The skill trees as well as the gear are pretty much staying the same. The only difference is instead of a P nade, I use the Hunter Seeker nade, still with the bonus Rad Anointment. The reason for this is because the Pearl grants us 1% increased damage per hit up to 15 times, and at max stacks, you then add 90% damage to that. So if we are bossing, there aren't many enemies to stack this bonus. So throwing a Hunter Seeker nade before we engage the boss will max out these stacks. The next interaction I wanted to talk to you guys about is keep Wrath and Transcend in mind. Now with Wrath, we gain 20% gun damage and an additional 20% after action skill used on that enemy. So we want to hit our target with our action skill, giving us 40% extra damage. And with Transcend, if we hit our target twice, we gain an increase of 54% critical hit damage. This is why I switched to Phase Cast for bossing. This will get you all the bonuses from these skills. And if you want to squeeze even more damage out, don't use your action skill augment, ours being Stillness of Mind. These augments take away from damage, so I just leave this blank when I'm bossing. Now, if you really want to get spicy, put on an amp shield for additional weapon damage, and you should be melting bosses with ease. Okay guys, that's going to do it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have, be sure to hit that like button. If you're not subbed, please hit that sub button and turn notifications on. It is free and it actually helps the channel so much and my growth. Alright guys, well, as always, happy looting. If you want to catch these videos live, you can find me at twitch.tv/JadedEcho_ or subscribe to my YouTube channel and be up to date with each video.